Sal Di Stefano, welcome to the American Glutton podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Dude, in this space, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm not even like angry at anybody trying to sell something because I think that's how people survive. They sell stuff. That's many people's jobs. But my perception of you is you are giving away an idea for free that is about perspective on health and fitness, which if people just listen to what you're saying, it's like a magical gift where if you go like, if we're entirely aesthetics captured and just working towards that versus concentrating on health, like the benefits, it gets us in the door faster. There's no huge runway to like unattainable results. And I really think that that's like noble of you. Are you in some like altruistic quest here?
Well, I mean, man, thank you so much. By the way, that was a very nice way to put it all. I trained people for a long time. I started as a trainer at the age of 18, and then managed gyms, and I've been in the space for a long time. And what you'll find in certain markets and certain spaces that is that people enter into them because of passion for what they're doing. Fitness isn't necessarily, well, it definitely isn't a space people get into because they want to make a lot of money. It's not a great space to make money. So I'll let people know ahead of time. If you think you're going to make a lot of money being a trainer or working in the gym industry, you're very few people can do that. So I really wanted to help people, and I had a deep passion for fitness. So I combined the two. And I've been on this kind of journey of just, I love it. I love what I do. It's like I can't do anything else, really. Thankfully, I've found my partners, and we built Mind Pump, and we've had good success. But for most of my career, I owned a small wellness studio. I managed in grand open gyms, and I train people, and I just love it. And, you mentioned something when we started about selling, or, you use the term selling or sales. Those of us in the fitness space who really, really care about people and want to do this the right way, we have to figure out how to sell our ideas, the right way to do things, better than the other guys or girls or people can sell the wrong way. And that's hard because the wrong way is an easy sell. Like, it's really easy for me to say, hey man, you feel crappy about yourself. I got the solution for you. It's in this bottle. You lose 30 pounds in 30 days, do this extreme thing, whatever. You're already hating yourself. That's great. Hate yourself more. You're not good enough. And I'm out here saying, oh, okay, it's lose 30 pounds. I mean, if you do it the right way, it's probably gonna take a long time, maybe a year. You got to really change deep things about how you look at yourself and your relationship to food and activity. And it's a journey. It's not really a destination. I know you want to lose 30 pounds, but this is something that you'll be doing for the rest of your life. Like, I'm selling something that's hard to sell. So I better learn how to communicate it effectively. And so over the last 2.5 decades, that's what I did. That's what all coaches and trainers do. It's you start to figure out how to say what you're trying to say in a way that really resonates with the average person. So, I mean, what are my intentions and goals? I mean, I've always wanted to help people. I think I'm better at it now than I was when I first started, for sure. I wasn't too good at it for a long time, but that's basically it, man. And we're in it's a struggle. It's a battle because the default in modern societies is poor health. That's just, if you just live the way you're quote unquote supposed to, eat the way you're supposed to, the default is really bad physical and mental, and you can throw spiritual health in there as well. That's the default. And so in order to not be a part of the default, you got to be weird. You got to do things differently. And that's hard when everybody's swimming in one direction. It's hard to swim in another direction, especially when everything's organized in a particular way to move you in a particular way. So it's tough. But if you look around, if you look at a lot of the problems that we have, this very well. So many of them are related to just our poor health. I don't think that's going to solve all the world's problems, but man, so many of our issues are related to poor health, even our mental issues. And we now have data very clearly showing that,
It
just
seems like, yeah, in America, and this might be naive, and it might just be my perspective because it's what I've dealt with the most. but my perception is it's one of the most foundational issues in America today. And like when I was a kid, it wasn't such a big deal, so I kind of stood out. I felt that I did. And now it's so everywhere. Wherever you go in America, you can see signs of poor health, even that our lifespan is deteriorating.
It's crazy. We've learned
It's
how to,
wild.
yeah, we've learned how to live longer, although we're starting to hit the wall with that, as you mentioned, but we've ignored how to live better. And I don't think, look, humans learn through trial and error. And so if you follow us for long periods of time, like millennia, we tend to improve. Okay. So I don't want to paint this really dark picture. But what we did in the 20th century is we solved some really big problems, which were we don't have enough food and nutrition. That was a big problem. A lot of people don't realize just how recent it was that we solved that for lots of people. In fact, we lifted more people out of poverty in the back half of the 20th century than we did in the previous, 10,000 years, in terms of just having access to things like food, water, and shelter. So we had that problem. We had the problem of back-breaking labor. Like we hurt, we were tired, we beat our bodies up. You ever look at pictures of 20-year-olds from the 1910s or 20s? I mean,
they look like they're 50.
Yeah, I mean, and they probably were like they were 50 from just the stress, that they were under with that kind of labor. So we made things easier. We found ways to feed ourselves very easy. Everything has gotten very easy. So we solved those problems, but as a result of the solution, we've encountered other problems. And so now we're in this interesting time where the healthiest people are going to be the ones that can create the most structure and discipline, are the ones that can say no, right? So, 1,000 years ago, you were the healthiest if you could find food and you could find ways to make life easier. Like you were the one you were winning. Now, I mean, how weird is it? It's funny. My grandfather, so I'm the first generation American, my product of really poor immigrants. And my grandfather, he cracks me out. He just passed away 6 months ago, but he was funny because he knew what I did, and I helped people in gyms and I trained them and all that stuff. And he used to laugh and he'd go, "It's so funny to me that people pay money to go somewhere to lift heavy things and put them down." Because he goes, "I used to have to do that for work, when I was 9 years old, and now people do that and they're not even building anything,
Yeah.
So it's because we've got new problems and we just have to figure out kind of a way around them. And we're really starting to hit the wall now. I think things are starting to become evident. You mentioned the poor health and our lifespans. It's nothing. The most evident space is children. Kids are, when I was a trainer, trip off this, right? When I first became a trainer in the late 90s, type 2 diabetes was called adult onset diabetes. That was what it was called. It was not called type 2 diabetes. There was type 1 diabetes, and then there was adult onset diabetes. They changed the name of adult onset diabetes to type 2 because kids started getting it.
Yeah.
It used to be you developed it as an adult through lifestyle. Just give an example of kind of what's going on. So
my daughter has juvenile diabetes, and at the time there were juvenile diabetes and adult onset diabetes, and then I believe that change occurred. She's had it for 15 years now. And I believe those changes were not in cement when she first got it, because she now today has type 1 diabetes, and there's type 1 and 2, but at the time it was juvenile and adult onset, which is crazy that children are getting type 2 diabetes. It's crazy.
Children get, if you look at this is what's crazy. If you look at the data on back pain, like back pain used to be you got that as you got older from work, or kids back pain and neck pain are reporting like crazy. Strength is declining very, very rapidly. College aged males, so they do grip strength tests with college aged males. A college aged male today has the grip strength of a 65-year-old in the 1980s. Just to give you an example of like where it's going. So, I mean, again, I'm not trying to paint this dark picture. It's just this is what's happening. And if you just do what you're supposed to, the default is poor health. So you really need to look at things and say, okay, what are some practices I can put into place that can buffer me against this default? And then, there's a lot that goes into that. Okay. Now, I know I'm in the fitness space. I'm a fanatic. So for me, it's very different than it would be for the average person. I love this or whatever. I know most people aren't so excited about working out and all that stuff. And I made it a living. So I try to look at it and I try to say, okay, what's the most effective and efficient way that we can communicate this so that the average person can be consistent with this and do this forever? I mean, ideally, like, okay, every day you should exercise and you should only eat whole foods and you should never do all this stuff. But that's just not realistic. And I don't want to make perfect the enemy of, something that you can do consistently. And so I try to communicate it and like, here's the real strategy, and the real goal is to find a practice that you can do consistently for the rest of your life. And then, I get into the, to what that looks like versus I think what's often communicated from fitness, which is, hate yourself, beast mode, beat yourself up, try this new, crazy class, or stop because it's toxic, or like those crazy, like extremes on both ends,
Yeah, I've fallen in, I've gone down the rabbit hole of most of those extremes, or the ones that were super popular, you know, 5 to 15, 20 years ago. And then as a kid, I was also put on lots of those, Fit for Life and the Beverly Hills diet. And it's like, there was one diet where it suggested you have a glass of white wine, 3 times a day. And I was denied that because I was 10. And I always felt like I got gypped a little bit, like they didn't really give me the accurate version of this diet. But the extremes, it seems like one of my fears in all of this is a lack of food can kill you pretty quick. So we
Yeah.
so we solve that. A lack of water can kill you even quicker. And lack of shelter can also kill you. It might take a little longer than food and water, but it'll kill you. Being obese or metabolically unhealthy takes a long time to kill you. And do you think there will be any big, cultural impetus to change this, since it's somewhat being normalized now because it is becoming more and more the average?
I think it's going to, that's a great question. We're going to medicate it until we can't anymore, which is already, we've already been doing, right? With anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications. They're going to come out with ways to keep you alive for longer while you're inactive, maybe offset some of the damaging effects of our diets and stuff like that. But I think at some point, people will realize that, because here's let's back up for a second. When I say being fit and healthy, the average person pictures a ripped, muscular, or fit looking body. Okay. That's the evidence. That's some of the evidence of fitness, but that's not really what fitness and health are. Okay. In fact, you can look ripped and be quite unhealthy. Okay. Now it's less common, but you can also be unhealthy. I think at some point, and I'm trying to do this, people will realize that there's so much more to fitness and health than just the way you look. Because look, at the end of the day, look, here's a fact: you're going to get older anyway. So you're like, nobody's going to look like a model. Well, first off, most of us can't anyway. I mean, I remember when I figured that out, I wouldn't be a pro bodybuilder when I was 17. I was, devastated for about a week, and then I went back to it. Right. That's what I thought I wanted to do. But there's so much more to it than just how you look. It's, people like to ask us this question. I've gotten this question asked quite a few times, and maybe we'll get here at some point. But the question is, do you think it would be a good thing if we invented a pill that gave us all of the benefits of eating right and exercising? So in other words, you take a pill and you get all the physical benefits. So I'm fit, I look lean, I can eat whatever I want, I can sit down all day long. and it wouldn't be the same thing. You know this.
Yeah.
The process of trying to better yourself, because that's really what it's all about. Now, I know people initially do it because they want to look better, or maybe because they hate themselves, and we can get into that. That's not a great way to stay, but I know that motivates all of us initially, myself included. Eventually, though, it will point you in the wrong direction. I know that that's what people initially want, but as you pursue this vehicle of personal betterment, of personal growth, you get so much more value out of it than, like, a flat midsection or sculpted shoulders or whatever. It's a journey, it's a process. You learn from the challenge, you learn from the struggle. It's a discipline, and it transforms you in those ways. So I think if people can discover that, then we've got a chance, we've got a shot. If people don't really understand that, if it's never really communicated well, and we're only obsessed with what it makes us look like potentially, I don't think we'll ever get there. I think we'll maybe eventually find that solution with modern medicine, maybe not, but I don't think we're ever gonna get there, right? So, like, to put it differently, if people enjoy the process, then we've solved the problem.
Yeah.
If people just want the result, we're not going to get anywhere. So it's up to us. Right?
Finding that that lane of something that works for you, that you can live with and enjoy, that's super hard. Like,
Yeah.
that for me was the hard, because initially I wanted to lose weight because I liked this girl, and there were things she wanted to do. She wanted to go on hikes. I would always beg off the hike. She wanted to go to a museum. I would beg off and I realized, like, oh, me in this state is not going to make it with this girl. It's not going to last, because there's a shitload of stuff she wants to do that I'm just not doing because I can't physically do it. I can't physically make it up the hill. Great. So that was one step of motivation. Years and years later, I fell into this I have to have abs motivation, and everything, like, my life revolved around getting lean enough to have visible abs. And I'll tell you what, man, even with abs in any version of light, right? Not overhead lighting, like you're just walking by a mirror with light blasting you from the front and you see abs, I'm not super thrilled. It's not doing what I want it to do for me. And maintaining that is absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
So that version of it, and now I have abs if I have overhead lighting first thing in the morning under the perfect circumstances, and I lean back a little bit and flex, like, I go, okay, there are my abs, and then I can't see them for the rest of the day. And it's like, all right, but I'm also, like, have a plan that's keeping me where I'm at. I'm feeling better every day. I think there's really something valuable to setting out a task that's hard and making your way through that despite physical and mental shit that comes up to get in your way, beating that every day, which I do in the gym. That's the best I feel the whole day.
Dude, you hit the nail so hard on the head with that. I could tell you're somebody who's been doing this for a long time, because you end up figuring that out. I remember when I first became a father, okay, I had to change my idea of fun, right? Like, you go out, like, you go on vacation without kids, you go on vacation with kids, very different. Now, if I keep in my head, like, if I think fun is doing what I want, drinking with my wife, staying up late, I'm going to hate it. But if I realize that, well, fun can mean a lot of different things, like, well, yeah, it takes way more planning. I got to bring this stuff with the baby, got to do this put the baby down. But then I'm, like, present with them. I'm watching them. I'm connecting with them. It's different. It's no less fun. It's just different, and I enjoy it, right? So why am I saying this? You mentioned enjoy. Find a way to enjoy this. Someone who doesn't exercise regularly or has never figured that out, they think you're crazy. What do you mean enjoy? Like, it hurts. Like the workout hurts, you struggle, you sweat. Like, what are you talking about? Or eating healthy. That's not fun. It's way more fun to eat a pizza. It's different, but it can also be enjoyable. You just have to open yourself up and understand the true value, the total value of what's going on. So is a workout as, let's say, hedonistically pleasurable as sitting on the couch and watching a movie or smoking a joint? No, it's not. It's not going to compare to that at all. But it's a different kind of fun. It's different, right? You mentioned it's a struggle. It's the accomplishment. It's the discipline. And then here's what happens. And this is what I love so much about consistent exercise is you start to develop without realizing it, because it is a microcosm of life. Okay, it really is. I'm gonna sound now like those fitness bros who call the squat rack the altar, right? You develop a different relationship with pain. Like, a beginner. I remember as a trainer, this tripped me out when I first became a trainer. I'd get like these new clients that never worked out before, and they would do an exercise like a tricep press down. And I remember one time in particular, this woman dropped, she like let go of the rope, and the weight, slammed down. And I'm like, "What happened? What's the matter?" She's like, "That hurts. I think I hurt myself." And so then, like, I asked her some questions. I'm like, "Oh, what happened?" And I realized it was just her triceps burning, but she never really felt that before, right? And then I thought about it, like, the advanced person, or should I say the experienced person, feels as much or more pain in the gym than the beginner. The difference is they have a different relationship with that.
They want it. They're looking for it.
They're looking for it. It feels different. You have built, because what happens to us in the world is what happens to us. The filter through which we see it and perceive it, the relationship we have with it, can change it fundamentally. So when you work out and you're trying to eat right and do all these things, and you start to develop a different relationship to enjoyment, or you're enjoying them for different reasons, you will literally enjoy them. It's not like I'm just making up using the word enjoyment for something else. You will develop that relationship. Boy, does it carry over into everything else. I used to love, one of my two categories of clients that were my favorite to train were kids and people in advanced age. I love the two extremes for different reasons. I loved advanced age because they always taught me so much. They were so wise. The benefits they got from the exercise were so profound. Like, I can go up the stairs alone, and I'm independent now. Like, that was always very emotional for me to hear somebody say that. Now, kids, why did I love training kids so much? Well, first of all, they're hard to train. They're all over the place. It's hard to keep their focus. You got to entertain them, all that stuff. But what I loved about training kids was, because children are like they're so moldable. They don't have like these set like beliefs like adults do necessarily. I would see the stuff that they would get in the gym permeate into everything else of their life. I remember one of the first kids I trained was this 14-year-old kid, and I remember he came in with his parents, and he was super shy, and he didn't want to make eye contact, and eventually we got to talking, and he wanted to work out because he was embarrassed to go swimming with his friends, would wear a t-shirt and all that stuff. And so his parents hired me to train him. And I remember I would track workouts and stuff. And I remember, he came in one day and he did some push-ups. We did some push-ups, and I showed him, and I said, last week, I don't remember what the number was, but I'll just say, last week you did 5 push-ups. You just did 7 push-ups. He's like, "Oh, that's cool." And I said, No. I said, "Do you know what that means?" And he goes, "I'm stronger." I said, "Yeah, but do you know what that really means?" And he goes, "No." I said, "You're not the same person this week that you were last week. You're fundamentally different. The person you were last week could only do 5. The person you are this week could do 7. You're literally a different person." And I saw this look in his face, in his eyes, where it's like, oh my gosh, like, this is incredible. Anyway, I trained this guy for about a year, and the changes in him were profound in his confidence in school. He ended up becoming a trainer later on. That's how big of an impact it had on him. But that's what it can do for you if you pursue it the right way. So people always ask, well, what's the right way? What's the right way to pursue it? Well, any new pursuit, you have to start where you're at.
Yeah.
And this is where we really screw up. And I say we is us in the fitness space. We communicate to each other all the time. It's an echo chamber of fitness fanatics. If you're doing nothing now for exercise consistently, so don't think, oh yeah, I worked out a couple times, last month. No. I mean, like, consistently. If you do nothing now, all you got to do is a little more than you're doing now. So just ask yourself, what's something I can do that I think I can maintain forever? That's somewhat challenging because it needs to, otherwise it doesn't mean anything, but also realistic forever. That's your starting point. That's it. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a 5-minute walk. It doesn't matter what it is. Start there. And then when you do that, whatever that is, and you start to feel like it's a habit, or this is what I do and I kind of value it, and I don't think I'll stop it, then you just ask yourself that question again. And what you'll find is each time you do that, the steps tend to get bigger and the gaps in between those steps get smaller. And the progress looks like a hockey stick. It starts off slow, but then things start to accelerate. And then before you know it, you've developed this lifelong relationship, this pursuit. You're on this journey. That's the only way really to do it, aside from the epiphany. But epiphanies are so rare. I don't think anybody should depend on those.
No, I think it's impossible to depend on those. Like I think about it like I brush my teeth every day. I cannot remember when this began, but I don't imagine that the day my mom said, now you brush your teeth, that it was just like, okay. And I never thought about, I just, it was a habit from day one. But today, if something crazy happens, and I can't even think of one instance of this happening, and I didn't brush my teeth, I just know I would feel like crap all day. And so I brush my teeth because my mouth tastes kind of like shit in the morning, or it's got some, excess saliva that dried and re-liquefied over the night. I want to feel fresh. And one of the things I do is brush my teeth. That's kind of my relationship with the gym now. I will say, to your point about soreness, when I'm in my routine and it's unbroken for a while, I don't get sore. And then stuff disrupts it, and I wind up in another state or another country for a period of time, and working out becomes more difficult. My routine goes to shit, and I come back to my routine and I start working out the way I had been. I'm always sore that week. And I love it. I miss that soreness. And when I get sore, and it's hard to raise my arms to put my t-shirt on in the morning, and I feel that tension, it excites me. It makes me happy. It reminds me that I've done something. The soreness, to me, the first time I ever got so sore it was tough to put a t-shirt in, I almost gave up. It was almost like I'm never doing this again. This is awful. And now it's something that when it comes, I really look forward to, because it is habitual now, truly.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. So it's evidence that you did something for you. It's evidence that, okay, I'm back on track, type of deal. But I want to communicate this to people listening right now who haven't been able to do this on a consistent basis. Soreness doesn't mean you had a good workout. It can sometimes mean you did too much, but it doesn't mean you had a good workout. Now, why am I saying that? Because oftentimes when people get started, they start because they hate themselves so much, and it's a cathartic feeling to punish yourself. And then what they'll do is seek out the soreness, and they'll train themselves in inappropriate ways, right? If you train yourself with too much intensity, too much volume, too much frequency, your body cannot improve. It can only try to heal. And you can definitely go downhill like that. And you see this quite often with people when they first get that negative motivation. Oh my God, I saw a picture of myself, whatever. I'm going to go to the gym, beat myself up type of deal. So I want to say that. But
no,
the other
that's
side,
super valuable. Self-flagellation. My entire experience with CrossFit was like, let's take this body as close to death as we can every day. And then I broke. I wound up having surgery, and it's like, you can't do that. I couldn't do that forever.
No, and that's a journey a lot of us go on who start fitness from that place. I was a skinny kid, growing up, so I had that insecurity. And I tiptoe that line all the time, even now. But it's awareness. I have to kind of be aware of the type of intensity that I apply. But I communicate this to people because that's one of the big mistakes that people make when they first start, is they think that in order for their bodies to progress, they have to really kill themselves to do so. And otherwise it's a waste of time. That they just have to, it just has to be absolutely unbearably painful and terrible. Otherwise, nothing will happen. That's not true. That's not how the body adapts. Now, I will say that sometimes there's value, mental value, in pushing yourself that hard. So I don't think there's no value in it. I think there is some value in learning how to push yourself, how to withstand, struggle and challenge in that way, especially nowadays when we don't really ever get challenged in that way. But for argument's sake, or for the sake of communicating this on a long-term consistent basis, when you exercise, what you're doing is you're sending a signal to your body to adapt. It's a stress signal. And what your body does is it heals and then it adapts. It heals from the damage that the stress caused, which is what exercise is. It's a stress on the body. And then it adapts by becoming stronger or more fit, so that next time the same stress no longer causes the same damage. No different than my skin darkening in response to the sun. Okay. Same, or my skin getting calloused from handling rough objects. Now, what is the right dose? Well, there's a lot of factors that determine what the right dose is for somebody. But one of the biggest factors is your current level of fitness. Like, what determines how much sun gets my skin darker? There's lots of factors, but one of the factors is, have I been out in the sun recently? Like, if I lived in my mom's basement for the last 4 years, it's not going to take much sun exposure to get my skin to start to darken. And if I go beyond that, I'll just get a sunburn, and that doesn't get me there any faster. It just causes too much damage. So I say that to people so they can more accurately find the right and appropriate dose. Now, why is that so important? Because people's experience with fitness, oftentimes when they do try to do it, is that they did too much. And they don't know that they did too much. They just know that it felt so terrible, that they felt tired, that they just were burnt out. I was too sore, or I hurt my back. I can't do that. I can't sustain that. That's not for me. I don't like it. I hate it. Well, yeah, of course you hate it. You're just constantly damaging your body. You're going to hate it. So a rule of thumb, for the most part, because like I said, there is value in the occasional push yourself to the limit. Okay. But for the most part, the way you should feel at the end of your workout is you should feel more energy than you did going into it.
Yeah.
You should end your workout and be in a better mood and have more energy. You should not feel like you survived. Like, a lot of people think like your workout should end and then you feel like, oh my God, I made it. Now I'm going to go lay on the couch and just, that was tough until tomorrow's war or whatever. No, for the most part, because remember, you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. 98% of the time, you should feel better. You should feel more energized. You should feel better mood. You should have more energy, better mobility, less pain. Like, it should feel like you took a feel-good pill and it just hit you. And now you're done with your workout. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing. That's the feeling you should have. If you're not having that feeling, then you're doing something wrong in your workout. And usually, not always, but usually it means you probably did too much. And again, I want to hammer this home. People oftentimes are like, I only did 20 minutes. What do you mean I did too much? Look, you would be surprised how easy it is for someone to do too much when they haven't done anything for a long time. People are often shocked by exactly that. Like, I would get, especially, deconditioned older clients, and I'd have them sit down and stand up 5 times off of a bench. And then the rest of the session was like isometrics.
Yeah.
And that was it. And that was right. That was the right dose. You wouldn't even be able to tell during the workout. They'd be like, well, I think I could do more. And I learned through terrible trial and error that, we would often do too much, beyond that. So it's just enough to set the gears in motion. And then what happens over time is your body begins to adapt. And then what is required to get your body to adapt further is more intensity, more volume, and stuff like that. And yes, of course, you start to hit this kind of like if you're really consistent, you're a fanatic and you've been doing this a long time, you start to get to this kind of like, is it worth, is the juice worth the squeeze at this point? Like, okay, I can add 10 more pounds to my squat, but I'm already squatting 500 pounds. Like, is that going to get me any more benefit? Or at this point, is it just that, I just want to be able to lift 10 more pounds on the bar? But that's a long road. There's a long road to get, and you understand this. You've been doing this for a long time. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, to get you to even go even further, I'm sure you've already determined, like, it's probably not worth it to do that all the time because I'll probably hurt myself, type of deal.
Yeah, I just for me at this point, I don't even care if it gets heavier. I would rather do a couple more reps or another set than put more weight on the bar. I've got like, I know what I'm comfortable with, and I know I can, and I know it hasn't hurt me in the past 5 years. I've been able to do this for 5 years now. And so my routine is pretty fixed. The volume changes with sets and reps for me.
Yeah.
I'm totally disinterested in, squatting 500 pounds, to be honest.
What you probably figured out is that your fitness changes. What I mean by your fitness is your routine. Your routine changes depending on the context of your life.
Yeah.
So you probably add volume and train a little harder when sleep is good, diet's good, you're not traveling all over the place, your stress is doing pretty well. When your lack of sleep, travel, diet's been a little off, then you kind of lower the volume. So it matches. Essentially, what you've probably figured out is I can use my routine to improve the quality of my life, regardless of the context.
Yeah,
and that's a great place to be.
And to what you said, there is certainly a point where I had been in the past willing to cross where I would have to go home and lay on the couch. And I am completely unwilling to do that anymore. Like, they're just, I don't know what I'm really getting from that, if that makes sense. I would rather leave the gym feeling more energy than feeling like I've just blown my whole day at the gym.
Yeah, what's cool. What's cool about this. I love talking to people like you who've been doing this for a while. Is it's like if you've ever done martial arts, it's like you'll talk to like the black belt who's been doing this for like 25 years, and they have such a calm, like just like monk-like demeanor about the art and the practice and then you meet the guy that's done it for 5 years and he's I'm an aggressive machine and I'm gonna it really is like that. As you follow this practice, as you do this, it gets better. You're better with how you use it. It improves your life in different ways. You start to find that it changes things in positive ways that you never really thought that it would impact. It used to be about how I looked, then it became about how I felt, then it became about my mental health and how much better of a father I feel like I am when I can do this, and better husband. Who knows what it's going to look like, moving forward. But it's pretty cool. And I not enough people communicate it this way to the average person. And so what the average person equates to exercise and diet is like, look ripped, look sexy, look hot. That's it.
Yeah.
Way more than that. In fact, if you do this the right way, the side effect will be look hot, sexy, and all that stuff.
Right.
That's not the primary effect. That's the side effect.
Yeah. The perspective shift that I needed to go through that took the longest time really was that I perceived myself to be what I was 20 years ago, which was, 550 pounds. And what would happen is I'd hear about a diet that had a trick or a program that had a trick. And my perception was how I am is a truthful, honest state. And in order to change it, I need a trick. There must be some gadget, because otherwise there's no fixing me. I am broken and this is me. And in order to solve me, there has to be some cheat code, right? And so I fell into this loop. The other part of it was the urgency with which I felt I needed to change. I needed to change. Like I've said this before, but like if I woke up tomorrow 500 pounds, the panic that would set in would be like, holy shit, I need to get this off as fast as possible. And now I remember waking up many times feeling that. And so I would grasp for whatever guaranteed me the fastest, easiest, but also like, you never thought of this because, you know, whatever supplement that is missing in your diet, you put that in and it balances everything. And then you're just normal and you lose the weight because your body is missing something, or it's a carbohydrate that's making you this way, or whatever it was. Cause I've tried all these things. Um, so it's a two-part thing where I, I empathize with people. Like, yeah, you want to change and you want it to be immediate. I completely get that. I mean, we don't even have to wait really for movies. The movie's out in the theater today, but it's also out in my bedroom today. So like, we get everything. You want a pizza, it's going to come to your house in 20 minutes. Not even Domino's, like the place that doesn't deliver, Uber is going to pick it up and bring it to you. You know, like stuff is really immediate now, and there's all kinds of, you know, bullshit stuff out there, but then also stuff where like you could probably take a shot and just lose weight. You don't have to change anything now. We've got drugs that are showing people that. So I think it becomes difficult to get into this mind frame of like long, slow change. It's working for me, and it's worked for people I know and talk to, and everybody seems a lot happier, but it's a hard sell.
It is. All right. So just one comment on that is that any fundamental change in your behaviors takes a long time. I don't care what it is. If you have a behavior, let's say you get defensive when somebody says something about your behavior, your actions, or you can be insecure in a room full of people or whatever. Okay. And I'm saying stuff that's not related to fitness, so some people can connect with what I'm saying. They're hard to change because they are your behaviors. So there is no trick in the sense that whatever you do, unless it fundamentally changes your behaviors, it's not going to work forever. Just the way it is, just a fact. Now, let's talk about obesity for a second, because I've done this for a long time. I've worked with people for a long time. Obesity is the most common, or wanting to lose weight, I should say, is the most common goal. I have a lot of empathy because it's a very visible, I guess, it's a very visible physical reflection of somebody's, let's say, potential shortfalls. So, you know, you can be a functioning alcoholic or have a gambling problem, or, you know, be a shitty partner, and people will look at you and they might not notice. They might not notice. But if you're really, really overweight, whether people judge you or not, or have this perception of you or not, you are very aware of the fact that people can see something. And that makes it really hard.
Yeah.
That makes it like, I want this gone tomorrow. And now why does it go from not thinking about it to that? Like any challenge that we have, oftentimes the way we deal with it is we ignore it. And then when it becomes so obvious to us that it's so painful, it's like, I want it gone. I want this reminder, like, out of here. So whatever does it the fastest, I don't care if it's permanent. I don't care if it's not permanent. I don't care if it takes me, if it's going to come back. I'll figure that out afterwards. Just get it off me. Just so I have a ton of empathy for people in that situation. But the bottom line is, if you want to do this and you don't want it ever to be a problem again, you have to change some things in fundamental ways, and that never happens overnight. It just doesn't. We just don't work that way. It's a process. It's a journey. Now I'll say this to kind of paint the picture a little bit. If we all treated ourselves, this, by the way, is not just confined to health and fitness in terms of diet and exercise. This is much bigger. But if we really truly treated ourselves like people we really cared about, this wouldn't be a problem. It just wouldn't. So what's happening? We're not treating ourselves very well. It's not that we're enjoying life. People think, oh no, I just enjoy life. No, 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 no. That's not really what's happening, because a fit, healthy version of you would enjoy life far more than an unfit, unhealthy version of you. It's just a fact. Okay. You're not just enjoying life, you're treating yourself like somebody you don't care about. Now, I know sometimes when I say that, people are like, well, what do you mean that by that? I got to have this warm, fuzzy feeling about myself. No, 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 that's not how it works. If you've been married for longer than a day, or you have kids, you're not going to always have warm, fuzzy feelings for the people you care the most about. I got kids, right? I have 4 kids. I have 2 teenagers, a toddler, and an infant. And I don't like them every day. It just doesn't work. Sometimes I'm like, man, I don't like this kid, but I always care about them, right? Like the people I care most about. So we just don't treat ourselves very well. So you got to start from that standpoint and be honest with yourself. Okay, I really haven't been treating myself like someone I care about. What does it look like if I treat myself like someone I care about? What would that look like right now as I walk into this gym? Well, it's probably not going to be working out until I throw up. Even though I feel like I want to do that because I want to hate myself. I should probably work out a little different. It's not, I'm going to eat pizza every night by myself. I'm probably going to feed myself in a way that cares for me. By the way, sometimes that is pizza. Like sometimes I'm hanging out with my friends and we're hanging out, we're having a good time, and caring for me is eating pizza. So this is where balance comes into play. This is where people have a challenge, because then they think, well, what about balance? Balance is baked into what I'm talking about. Balance is sometimes you do things because of the hedonistic pleasure or the fact that I'm not moving. Like that's good for me too sometimes. Most of the time not, but oftentimes it is. So if you approach it from that standpoint and you start caring for yourself like somebody you care about, and you go from that standpoint, then what'll happen is you'll be able to take the right steps towards creating these behaviors that will support that. And then they'll become your fundamental way of being. Now, people always ask me the small points, right? Well, what about carbs? What about sugars? What about fats? What should I eat? What should I not eat? Or it's actually less complicated than you think. It really is. I know a lot of people come out and they try to sell the next book and they point to this one specific enemy and what the deal is. And really, it's a lot less complicated. It's really not super, super complicated. It really looks like this. I should probably stay away from foods that a lot of people have spent a lot of money in engineering on to make them irresistible, because that's going to make this really hard. Okay. It's like if I'm eating foods that have been engineered specifically to make me overeat, this is going to be really hard for me to do, because when I take a bite of it, like they've spent billions of dollars and decades into figuring out how to get me to eat one more bite or 10 more bites or whatever. So while I'm on this journey, I should probably stay away from those things, because this is a tough thing for me to figure out. So let me avoid those foods. That's pretty much the best place to start. In fact, the average person who wanted to lose, let's say 100 pounds, would probably lose 50 pounds just from that, from that alone. Not even worrying about cutting calories or anything else, just that alone. Okay. What about exercise? Let me find ways of moving more during my day. And let's start there. Let's just start there. What does that look like? All right. I'll give you some examples. I'll walk for 10 minutes after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's it. That right there, huge difference for most people. Here's some other ones. I used to hear this when I was a trainer. When I first became a trainer, I thought they were so stupid, until I started to really calculate and figure things out and train people. And then I realized, oh my God, I was such an asshole. Like I told people that was a waste of time, and it was one of the greatest things ever. It literally could be, instead of using the bathroom on the first floor that I work in, I'm going to only use the bathroom on the 3rd floor. Like automatic, instant extra activity. I'm not even scheduling a workout. I'm not trying to work. I'm just doing a little extra, whatever. park at the end of the parking lot, like these silly things that we think are not impactful. For health, they make a big impact. Okay, well, what about structured exercise? What should I do? Let me pick a form of exercise that just has the most bang for its buck. People think that means the hardest. People think that means burns the most calories while I do it. That's not true. The calories you burn while you work out are almost inconsequential. The intensity only matters if it produces an adaptation that's favorable. Meaning, what form of exercise is going to get my body to change in a way that's going to bolster me in the most impactful way, and that also takes the least amount of time in relationship. Strength training does that. Nothing does that like strength training. Like, you could take the average person, have them lift weights for 35 minutes twice a week. So they're not going to become bodybuilders, obviously, but they'll definitely build some muscle and strength. But what you'll get from that is a faster metabolism, better hormone profile, better insulin sensitivity, and you're looking at 35 to 40 minutes twice a week. It's not a huge commitment. It's a great place to start. Like, that's it. Those three things that I just said right there, that right there would take people most of the way there.
Yeah.
Realistically. And then if they do it and they're consistent and they love it, now have fun. Now you can have fun and really, really, figure out what this looks like for you.
Where would you say, like, you called it balance? I think of the word that I use is moderation, but like, where would you put that? Because I will tell you honestly, for me in the beginning, like when I read Tim Ferriss's book and it was like Sunday is a cheat day.
Yeah.
I ruined the whole week, and I would work my ass off all week, and I would ruin the whole week every Sunday, because a cheat day for me is not the same as a cheat day for Tim Ferriss. Sorry, Tim. So now today I just got back. I was in Italy for a couple of weeks, and I ate whatever I wanted the whole time. I walked a hell of a lot more than I do here. So I was constantly moving, but I also never went to the gym, not once, for 2 weeks. And I ate whatever I wanted, and I'm back, and everything's fine. And I'm back on my program. And there was no hiccup where, like, I woke up Monday after getting back and thought, I'm going to lay in bed and watch Netflix and order Postmates. That didn't happen. That would have happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago, had I had that trip to Italy, getting back to America would have been a disaster, because I would have kept the pasta party going. And so, but it took me a long time to feel comfortable doing that. And like you talked about behavior, my behavior with food is very different. I was not eating, like, my off switch was eating to the point where I was sick in my former life. That doesn't happen. That I never allowed that behavior to happen. I'm not eating compulsively, but I'm not withholding things like pasta. I'll have pasta. I'll usually try and share it with somebody because I don't want to overeat. And I'll make sure I get protein. Like, those kind of things are still in my mind. But I'm generally not eating much pasta in my day-to-day life at home. Not that it's off limits. It's just not. I prefer rice if I'm having a carb, or a potato. That's my preference here. Because pasta without oil is really fucking boring, but you can get away with rice without oil. That's just me. So at what point do you suggest people try to mess around with balance?
Yeah. Man, what you're saying, I don't know if you realize just how much it's like warming me up, and giving me the chills, because, you're illustrating exactly the journey that people will discover if they do this, for the right reasons. And you said a few things there that I don't know if people hearing realize just how powerful they are. You mentioned how your off switch before was you ate until you were sick.
Yeah.
You weren't eating for enjoyment. This is where people get confused. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to go have a cheat day. I'm going to eat what I like." They heard you say you were in Italy and you ate whatever you wanted.
Right.
What you wanted was to actually enjoy the food, not to make yourself sick. Now people are like, well, what do you mean make yourself? Because that happens to me. Like, what's going on here? But I'll communicate it in a way that I think can be effective for some people. So let's tell a story. Okay, you got a guy. He sees a picture of himself on Facebook that a friend took, and he's like, "Oh my God, I look terrible. I'm fat. I got to go to the gym. I'm disgusting. I can't believe it. How have I let myself get to this place? I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm going to beat myself up. And that's it. Diet. I'm going on a crazy diet. Goes in his fridge, goes in his pantry, throws out all the garbage, and just buys, vegetables, fruit, whatever he thinks is healthy. And he does this for a while, beats himself up, restricts himself, goes out to lunch with his friends. His friends say, hey, have a piece of bread. No, I can't. No, I can't. I'm on a diet. Hey, have a cookie. No, I can't. He wants that pizza at night or that burrito for lunch. No, I can't. Okay. What's happening there is he has created a dictator within himself. And the dictator or the parent is saying, you're fat, you're lazy, you can't. And he's also identifying with this kid, this scared kid, or this tyrannized person who's like, you're right. I can't, I shouldn't, I'm terrible. I need you to tyrannize me. And then eventually, here's what happens to John. At some point, he goes, screw this. I'm going to enjoy myself. And then he doesn't eat one cookie. He eats 3 boxes of cookies. He doesn't go out. He doesn't stop exercising for a day or two. He doesn't go to the gym for months and months and months. That's a rebellion. He has rebelled against himself. He has rebelled against the tyranny of himself. So that's what happens oftentimes. So a cheat day for someone who's in this state is not just a, go off the diet day. It's a rebellion from the 6 days that I just had during this week, where I was constantly tyrannizing myself and saying, you can't. Now, the place that you're in now, you don't say, I can't. You say, yes, or no, thank you. I don't want. There's a big difference between I can't and I don't want.
Yeah.
And if you get to that place, then you have yourself a lifestyle, a sustainable, this is like just how you live. It's not your diet. It's just how you live. You're caring for yourself. Whereas before you were not. It was all about hate. It was all about self-hate. I'm the fat guy. I'm the skinny guy, or I'm the unattractive woman, or I'm the whatever, negative thing. And beat myself until I can't handle it. Who the hell wants to hate themselves all the time? Eventually you want to escape that. And what that looks like is the opposite of what you've been doing. So it's not just one, meal. It's until you're sick, until you can't breathe, until, in fact, if you've ever become aware during a binge where you're eating, what you'll notice is that you're not even focusing on the food that's in your mouth. It's about the one that's in your hand.
Yeah.
You're not even enjoying it. Whereas I bet you when you're in Italy right now, I bet you when you're enjoying the food, you're probably savoring it. You're probably eating it. This tastes so. You ever eat somebody versus the it's not even about savoring it. It's just about rebelling, right?
Yeah.
So very, very different. I remember the first time that occurred to me. I was at a business dinner with my ex-wife and her colleagues, and one of them told me that, once they asked, because they go around the table and the spouses are like, what do you do for a living or whatever? And I'm like, oh, I'm a trainer. And of course, immediately everyone's real, self-conscious about what they're eating and stuff. But soon they were put at ease and we're drinking. And this woman looks at me and she goes, I had a friend who was 45 and she was super fanatical about exercise and diet. And then she got breast cancer and she died. And then after that happened, I said to myself, I'm just going to enjoy life. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm just going to enjoy life. And I looked at her and I felt bad for her experience. And I said, I could get hit by a car tomorrow. I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I know I live better when I do those things. And then I left it at that. And I remember I went home and for the first time, because I'd heard that many times. I've heard many times people say, I stopped working out or I stopped the diet because I want to enjoy my life. But for the first time ever, I thought it actually struck me strange because I'd heard it so many times. But that time I heard it and I thought, what? Wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. Like, I know for a fact that everything is more enjoyable when you're healthy.
Yeah.
Everything. Eating, cookies and cake is better when you're fit and healthy. Sex is better when you're fit and healthy. Waking up in the morning, sleeping, time with your kids, time with your spouse, being stuck in traffic. Like, I don't care what it is. If you're fit and healthy, it's just life is better. It's more enjoyable. And yet here she is telling me, I just want to enjoy my life. And I thought about this for a long time. I remember it was like a month there where it really struck me as odd. And I thought about this. I thought, how can I communicate this? How can I really, first I had to understand it, and then I had to be able to communicate it, because I heard this so many times. And the conclusion I came to was, people are hating themselves throughout the whole process. They are not eating because they're caring for themselves when they're on a diet. They're being tyrannized by themselves. They're not working out to try to feel better. They're beating the shit out of themselves because they deserve to feel pain for their whatever, laziness or whatever you want to call it. Of course, it's more enjoyable to stop. Nobody wants to hate themselves for too long. It feels way better when you stop. So that's what it was. And when you get past that point, it is so different. And what you just said, man, you like 100%.
There's a weird way I think we can use language, even with the way we communicate concepts to ourselves, because I'm a sober guy also, and there is a version of me, and I could use the language that I'm going to enjoy my life with drugs and alcohol. Like, this has been too hard. I just want to enjoy myself. And it's really suicide. It is for me, it is a very fast route to death. And miserable. Like, the amount of time when I was using drugs that I was actually enjoying the drugs was very, very small compared to the amount of time that I spent uncomfortable and compulsively seeking out the drugs. And that's not really fun, that part of it. So like, yeah, no, go for it.
We had Arthur Brooks, a good friend of mine. He's a happiness expert. He's a Harvard professor. And I asked him about that, because I know that food is the most abused, I don't know, drug, I guess you could say, in Western world, right? And then you mentioned drugs and alcohol. And by the way, exercise could be a drug. People could abuse it as well. I see that all the time in the fitness influencer space. And I asked him about that specifically, and he said, people would rather be high than happy.
Yeah.
I said, wow, that's huge. By the way, I want everybody to understand, I'm not preaching from a tower where, listen, I struggle with this myself. This is the human condition. We don't like to be present or uncomfortable. We try to find ways to distract ourselves and not be comfortable. And the most common way that we tend to do it is with food. That's just the most common way that we do it. And exercise, although you could morph it into a drug, you definitely could. Initially, it will make you present because it's hard. Like, you're in it. Oh shit, I feel it. Like, I don't want to feel anything right now. I want to be out of here. So it can be really challenging. Now, you could also use it to numb yourself, and I've been there as a fitness fanatic. So it could also, I mean, like I said, you can abuse anything. But I mean, this is exactly how it needs to be communicated, so people can understand the right way to approach it, have the right compassion for themselves, and to understand the journey that they're embarking on. And it is not some impossible journey. It's impossible if you do it the wrong way, and if you have the wrong expectations. It's very possible if you understand what you're about to embark on. If it's coming from a place of self-care, then it becomes a journey of learning, and you will, as you move along, figure it out, and things will continue to improve. Just a fact. Things will continue to improve. This does remind me to communicate the following as well, that much of the information that is sold from the fitness space and the health space is not coming from people that understand this. It's coming from people who've done a really good job at making themselves look good through abusing their bodies, through abusing themselves with diet and exercise and God knows what. They communicate out to the world what they think is the right message, which usually sounds like beast mode, kill yourself, it's food is fuel, where you just like, what is this person a robot? Like, I don't understand, kind of what's going on. Or they talk to you as if they don't understand at all. I remember when I first became a trainer, I would get like the working mom, right? That would come in and she'd say, I'd say, well, how many days a week do you think, you could exercise consistently? And she'd say something like, oh, I think I can make it like once a week. And I mean, just, I feel, I want to apologize, by the way, anybody watching who was put in front of me in those early days. I was an idiot. I had no idea. But I would do this whole speech, right? Like, oh, you got to make time for yourself. And if the more time you spend on yourself, the better mom you'll be, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure, I know that lady sitting across from me was looking at this 18-year-old kid and thinking, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, and now I definitely don't want to start, because now you're telling me it's a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Much later, I figured out the following. Someone said they only had 1 day a week. That's great. That's where we're going to start. And then you know what would happen almost every time is, if I could do a good job with that once a week, they'd start to enjoy it in the ways that we're talking. They'd start to feel, they themselves would start to find more time. But even if they didn't, it was so much better than what they did before. Right.
Yeah.
So, I want to say that because the information you can get from fitness influencers and social media and all that stuff is so bad oftentimes. It's so terrible oftentimes. If it doesn't come through the filter of what I'm saying right now, if it sounds like I have the solution, do this, fix it overnight, beat yourself up, all that stuff, then just turn it off. They're not communicating the right way.
I love just your kind of foundational filter of that it should all just be done out of caring. If that is the starting point for all of this, because I think that even if you're being really honest with yourself, I've experienced the manic, I need it right now. That's not caring. That's something else. That's anxiety. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you're talking about all of it, for me, you hit the nail on the head with a discomfort with the present. It's all drugs, alcohol, food. It's all a compulsion that eases my sense of well-being, which is being attacked by something I'm not even aware of. Like, I can't even figure out what my distaste for just being in the moment is, but I have it. I don't want to be in the moment. So food alleviates that. Crack cocaine alleviates that. Alcohol alleviates that. But all of that comes with, like you said earlier, sitting on the couch, watching a show, smoking a joint, eating a pizza is fun. Yeah, but it's not fun when you wake up. It's not fun when you stand up off the couch. So it's fun for a moment. I'll tell you what, when I go to the gym, I'm enjoying my time at the gym, and I'm enjoying that I went to the gym for the rest of the day. And then the next day, what gets me back there, if I wake up and don't want to get out of bed, is remembering how much I enjoyed my time at the gym and how good the rest of my day was because of it. So they're incomparable in that sense. I'm in the moment at the gym. I'm dealing with the discomfort at the gym, and I'm feeling better because of it.
I can relate to 100% what you're saying. I think if people were honest, they would all relate. I think that's a human condition. I think all of us have trouble being in the present because it's uncomfortable being in our own skin. And we haven't learned to develop or build relationships around some of that discomfort. And we have so many ways of distracting and numbing ourselves. But I know this. I can say this with full confidence. What's got you to where you're at now isn't that you did everything right. It's that you probably have this pursuit, because nobody does everything right. It has nothing to do with you. Okay. I've done a lot of things wrong, most things. Okay. It's probably this pursuit of self-reflection and growth. So at many stages, you probably stopped many times and said, am I doing the right thing? Like, maybe there's a better way of doing this. It's that pursuit. And if you're on that path, then you will improve. But in order to do that is hard, because you have to reflect. You have to be able to say to yourself, yeah, this probably isn't great. And the great starting point for that is the self-care question. Am I
Yeah.
really caring for myself? You know, I have a coach that I work with sometimes. And she asked me, she goes, "Do you love yourself?" And I remember I sat there and I said, I wanted to say, yeah, because I feel confident. I got charisma. I could do my thing, right? And then I thought to myself, like I gave myself a dose of my own medicine, you know? I said, do my actions, do they really reflect somebody? And I said, I kind of made this face and I said, a lot of times I don't, you know, take care of myself like somebody I actually love. So this is, when I'm talking to myself as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but I, I love fitness so much because it is a vehicle of growth, of personal growth that for now, who knows if they'll figure out a way to do this in the future. For now, it doesn't automatically turn people off like spirituality or other whatever. Most people can be like, yeah, I think I'll try that, maybe for whatever reasons, and then they get on this journey and they figure out like, oh, this is pretty cool. But yeah, I hope to make that kind of an impact, and I hope people can move forward in this direction. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm saying, I know I said this already. There are lots of hows and why, like, okay, well, here's the best exercise for this, and here's how you should, these foods are better for that. But that's below what I'm talking about. Like what I'm talking about, you start there and the rest of it becomes easy. If you get stuck on the ones and zeros, you're screwed.
Yeah.
If you get stuck on the what kind of protein, what kind of carb, what about this exercise, what about that, what about this routine versus that routine, and you don't figure out the other stuff, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Sal, thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really do appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, man. I thank you, and you communicate so eloquently, or so honestly, I should say, what that journey looks like. So hearing you talk, it's like, man, this is exactly what what I've heard from people who've gone down, and what I've experienced myself. Like I said, I entered into this space through my own insecurities and body image issues. So, um, it's great that you're there communicating it the way you are, because it's not a common message, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's almost like for sobriety, I have people I talk to who are of like mind to me, and that's very helpful. And I didn't find that with food, that I had a lot of people, but I can do this and I can have a conversation with you. And it's like, I want to just thank you, because it does help me. Like, this adds to my foundation. I've communicated, I've talked about my issues, I've listened to what you've gone through and heard your ideas. And it is, I think, entirely selfish in that way, that this helps me to maintain what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It really is awesome, man. We're in an interesting place right now in the world, in modern societies, where poor health is the default. It's also starting to get celebrated, which is very interesting. And I've never in my life thought I would see diets become politicized and fitness become demonized. Very
It's
interesting.
crazy. It's
And it
crazy.
makes you wonder why. Why would they do that? Or why would anybody do that? And I have my own speculations, but we're in a war, and the war is for your own empowerment and your own health. And most of the stuff that's out there is not geared in that way. Most of it's geared in the wrong way.
Yeah. There's well,
Getting
there's a
Go
there's a
ahead.
tinfoil hat version of me that sees like the McDonald's CEO going, like, pumping money into, you know, some version of pills, but then also some kind of like a cultural movement where it's like, this is normal. We should all celebrate it. The airplanes, the small seats on the airplanes, that's the airplane being fat phobic. That's not a reflection of what bodies look like on
Yeah,
average.
yeah. You're going to open a can of worms, but initially it was because I think markets give us what we want, not necessarily what we need. But now I think it's a little bit more like unhealthy. unfit, disempowered people are easy to manipulate and make amazing consumers.
Yeah.
Fit, healthy, empowered people are harder to scare, they're harder to manipulate, and your consumption habits totally change. You don't buy all the crap because you don't feel like you have to, you know? It's just different. You don't make the best consumer. You know, if you're a dad that cares about your kids and feels healthy and fit and you feel confident in a real way. When I say healthy, I mean in the real sense, like mentally and all that stuff. I mean, you're not out there buying everything to make yourself feel better or buying everything to distract yourself, and you're not scared every time you read a headline as easily. So I feel like now it's weird, man. Like I said, I see articles now that say things like lifting weights causes toxic masculinity, and man, you've been on both ends of the spectrum in terms of like, obviously now if somebody saw you and they didn't know who you were, they'd be like, man, that dude's really fit. Can you tell me one place that isn't more inclusive and accepting than a hardcore gym when you're in there working out?
No,
I
they're the
can't think.
best. They're absolutely the best. But you know what? Like, dude, and this is a good thing to bring up because I had to lose 150 pounds before I was willing to step foot in a gym. I didn't, I had no idea. I just knew like the people there are, you know, and like, let's be honest, like there's a couple gyms in America where even today at my fitness, where I can probably outlift everybody there and do more cardio than them too. The people are assholes. But when you're talking about a hardcore gym, that's the gym I like to go to. My gym here is a hardcore gym, and there is every shape and size and physical ability person in there, and it's the most loving environment ever.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Father Steve, he works on the Word on Fire podcast. He's a real Catholic priest. Okay, he also lifts weights, so he's like this like jacked priest, pretty funny. But we were having this conversation, and he said, he goes, man, he goes, the church, obviously he's Catholic. He goes, the church doesn't do as good of a job as this as hardcore gyms do. He goes, the most accepting place I've ever been to is a hardcore gym. Nobody cares in a hardcore gym. If you're in there and you're trying, nobody cares. I don't care who you vote for, what you worship, who you sleep with. I don't care how big or small or tall or old or young you are. Like, we're all pursuing the same thing. We're all in here trying. Nobody cares. I tell you what, man, I challenge people. If you're super scared and insecure and you feel like you're super out of shape, go to the most hardcore gym you could find. Walk up to the scariest looking person in there, ask them for help, and you'll be shocked.
Yeah.
At the response you get. It's the most welcoming, inclusive place. So when I read these articles that say that it's toxic and it causes all the, I'm like, who is writing this? Because this is not just skewed truth. This is the opposite of the truth, and it's terrible. And it's somebody who doesn't want somebody to work out. What is going on here?
Or they went to like the Soho Equinox. And you know, and that you know, I agree. It's gross. It's not fun.
I know. That's why I say the hardcore gym. It's exactly the gyms people think are the scariest, you know?
Yeah.
It's just so fun. I remember I as a kid, I walked into my first, it was a world gym. And this was like, back then, that was like the hardcore gym. And I walked in, I remember I was 17, you know, so I drove far to go to this gym. Like, I'm going to work out at World Gym. So like pumped or whatever. And I went in there and there was there was an Olympic platform. Back then, you never saw Olympic platforms. Okay. So you never saw somebody throwing and dropping weights ever, or chalk. You can never, so I saw these guys working out with chalk, whatever. And they were just these scary, just, you know, they were, I don't know how old they were. They looked like older, you know, old men, but they're probably in their 30s. And, you know, they're, you know, grunting and just, and I was watching them. Every once in a while I'd look over and I do my thing. And I remember one of them goes, hey, you know, hey kid, hey, you got any questions? And I said, so I started asking questions about like exercise and diet. And it's like, I got a free training session. Like, they were the coolest guys ever.
Yeah.
It was just, I remember it was such a cool moment, you know, to see these like big, scary, serious looking dudes. And then, you know, they obviously saw some 17-year-old kid who was trying real hard. So they wanted to help me out. That was so cool. But yeah, I dare you, man. I dare anybody listening right now. Go to the most hardcore gym
with the
ever.
scariest looking people.
And
And
they're the kindest, coolest, like helpful people you you ever
yeah,
meet.
yeah, I think that asking somebody for help at a gym is a great way to, like, if you're scared to go in the gym, don't go in and ask somebody tough or who looks like they're been doing it for a while for help, and you'll be shocked at how helpful they are.
I know it's crazy. It's my favorite was when I managed gyms. I used to love some of the gyms I managed were more hardcore than others, and some of them were more the globo. But I remember there were a couple times where I see these older women that would, these are women I signed up because at one point I was a general manager, so I would talk to like a lot of the new members, and I would convince them that you need to lift weights. Like this, you're talking early 2000s. Like women didn't want to work out, let alone older women, right? But I'd convince them, like, no, you got to lift weights. Here's what this will totally really help you. And I'd see them come in and I'd greet them or whatever, and then they'd walk into the weight room real timid, and I'd watch, and every time, man, sure enough, some dude, lifting the 100-pound dumbbells or whatever, would stop, come over, give her a hand, help her out or whatever. And within within a few weeks, it was like, don't mess with her,
Yeah,
because every dude in there, she's like the gym mom or whatever. I used to love that.
yeah,
I used to love watching that.
that's amazing. All right, Sal, thank you very much.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.